It's really a study of cognition in part one. We're trying to understand what it means to know and what is inner truth.
Dancing fearless.
The unique thing here is that we're looking for inner truth compared to outer truth. The goal of knowledge was making a distinction between inner truth and outer truth. So Steiner's cognition involves the experience of inner truth. Part one consists of the first 7 chapters. At the desire for knowledge, we come across a point where there's a split that occurs between our thought world and the perceived world. We have this inner world of thought, and we have, the outer world that we perceive with our senses. There can be a split there between our knowledge and the real world. So that creates a desire for knowledge to resolve that split. When you get to chapter 7, that split is resolved where we reach cognitive satisfaction. We overcome the duality of that split. We're initially presented with a world of appearance. When we get to chapter 7, we're able to put together concept and percept into the complete reality. And at that point, we experience cognitive satisfaction. We get our questions answered. In chapter 2, questions arise in the pursuit of knowledge. And by chapter 7, we answer our questions and are satisfied. And then there's this long process in between them where it goes into all the different cognitive processes to bring freedom to that particular process. We're dealing with the willing process in chapter 1, the feeling process in our desire for knowledge. The thinking process is examined in chapter 3, where we really take a close look at what pure thinking is. Then in chapter 4, we run into perception bias, which is a real problem that everybody is dealing with, this perception bias that's preventing us from seeing the truth. And that becomes a tremendous barrier to the whole first part of the book, is perception bias. And then we study perception, how our thoughts are projected into the world to create perception bias. It's not until chapter 5 we discover the corresponding concept that is applied to our perception, and then we're able to know the world. Then in chapter 6, we discover the concept in chapter 5 that corresponds to the world, and now we individualize it and end up with an individualized concept. We add our individuality to that pure cognitive concept and make it our own and represent it with a mental picture or idea. And then chapter 7, as you go back to chapter 2, you realize that we create the split, and we are able to resolve that split by chapter 7, and then we reach cognitive satisfaction. Since we create the split in chapter 2, we don't have any limits as far as our ability to reconcile that split. It's a different look at cognition compared to how other people normally look at cognition.
So I'm actually following pretty well. Number 4 is the perception process. That's what you're perceiving from the world. And number 5 is your thoughts of what that means. And then 6 is you kind of combine them, make a picture. But I don't understand what 7 is.
In 7, we're dealing with our outer perception of reality. In chapter 4, we're just looking at our first impression. We look at something and a picture is formed. Our organization forms a picture, and that's what we see. Now, when you get to 7, we're more actively creating the reality that we see in the outer world.
How does that differ from the mental picture?
The mental picture is within our inner picture of the world, our idea of the world. It exists in the mind.
Okay.
Our ideas, mental pictures, are representations of the world that exist in our mind. In chapter 5, you're dealing with the pure concept or law of something that we can all agree upon. Chapter 6 is different. It takes that law, individualizes it. Actually, we discussed this last week when we were discussing the laws of composition and then the individualization of those laws of composition when we actually write music, when we compose music. Now, see, we can represent things as ideas, but these ideas can be wrong. They may not represent reality at all. So we're trying to actually represent reality in a more truthful way.
Elements of our being, like through the willing aspect of our existence, that we are. I'm hypothesizing. In other words, I'm trying out this idea. I don't know if it's right.
Yeah, there's all kinds of elements here, and that's what's nice about the philosophy of freedom, is because it takes all these different elements and then puts them in kind of a structure and an order throughout the book. As you go through the book, whatever thoughts and ideas you have, you'll find them represented in the book at a particular place. Fits everything in an order. So then you can see the whole picture. It's a holistic thought structure. So the best thing to do is to learn that ordering through the study of the book, because you're kind of getting ahead with some elements here and there. They'll all become clear as we go through the book, because each element that you're aware of, you'll find that discussed somewhere at some point.